Hello and welcome to Fireside MSP, your go-to podcast for all things tech in the managed services world. I'm Trevor Mansell, VP of XenTegra Managed Services.
And I'm Brian Clark, Chief Architect and Technology Officer at XenTegra.
Whether you're a tech guru, a business leader, or just curious about the world of managed services, there's a seat by the fire with your name on it.
So sit back, relax, and tune in while we spark up some tech talk. Welcome to Fireside MSP. Hello, and welcome to Fireside MSP. This is our inaugural episode. I'm Brian Clark, and I'm here with the rest of the XenTegra team, surrounded with Ray Anderson, Randy Price, and Trevor Mansell. This episode is going to cover Citrix's acquisition of UberAgent and what that means for the product, what that means for UberAgent customers, and what that means for existing Citrix customers. This is a really exciting time. DEX monitoring, which is the monitoring of the digital employee experience, which is what UberAgent does, is going through some really impressive changes, specifically around what the users are experiencing in terms of latency and performance and how they're perceiving, how they're accessing their application. So let's dive right into what this means for everyone. Trevor, you've been with Citrix, you were with Citrix for a very long time, heavily involved in the end user compute space. Can you just give us a little bit of a legacy of what Citrix used to do for monitoring their end user experience? And good sir, you were on mute.
There we go. I will try my hardest here. So, yeah, I think if I'm trying to think back here. So back in the day when there was like one product, it was Citrix Resource Manager. Wasn't that right, Randy?
That's correct.
That was yeah. And then they bought EdgeSite, right? And that was like a behemoth of a monitoring solution. That was agent-based. Just some people, there were some customers that really liked it. But I think they were, yeah, I don't think everybody was a fan of that one. And then at one, I think when XenTegra came in, I believe that's where Director came in, and they kind of just sunsetted EdgeSite and I think they used the name for a little while longer. But I think that when Zen Desktop came into the picture, it went, more agentless. It was all within Director. A lot less features, a lot less monitoring components. And then they've been kind of adding to that ever since. I mean, now they've got, I don't know, what else do they got? Right now they've got analytics, performance monitoring. Yeah.
So it's always been something that they've done through acquisition more than they've kind of developed in-house, would you say?
Yeah. So, I mean, hey, at the end of the day, I think most people, yeah, there's been a gap, right? You only get so much out of agentless when it comes to Windows, and I think that's
Totally agree.
the whole thing with UberAgent. That's kind of the whole point of why they got it, right? But yeah, I don't know. I think there's a lot there that's going to be helpful to some people. I don't, for the masses, most people, are use third party EUM, type or DEX type solutions today. So it'll be interesting to know like how this kind of impacts customers.
Yeah, totally agree. For all of our audio only listeners out there, I've pulled up the actual announcement blog from citrix.com. So in case you don't know, UberAgent is owned, or was owned, I should say, by Vast Limits, which is a German company owned by Mr. Helge Klein. I hope I did not butcher that. I've actually worked with Helge for a very long time. For all you old school sysadmins out there, he was the guy that wrote Delprof 2, a very, very handy tool in the EUC space. That guy writes awesome, solid code. And I've worked with UberAgent for maybe almost 10 years now, deploying it at a previous career, version 1.0. So it's impressed me then, and still impresses me now. And as Trevor mentioned, it's agent based, so you can gather a ton of information based out of Windows with UberAgent versus just scraping it through API calls. So as we scroll through here, that even though Citrix acquired it, UberAgent is valid for all platforms, right? So not just Citrix's ICA protocol, but also RDP. And you could even use it for standard things like AVD or even competing products if you wanted to. It does run on top of Splunk in addition to other, we'll call them kind of object-based analytic platforms like Elasticsearch. But out of the box, you do really want to consider using Splunk as the backend for it, as all the native beautiful dashboards require that Splunk interface. You can use other products, as I mentioned earlier, but you really got to build kind of the dashboards and analytics on top of that yourself. So, if you have a strong Elk development team, it might be something that you want to consider. But it's a very robust platform, gathers a lot of metrics. And it's not just, the actual endpoint or delivery, application delivery console or whatever platform you're using to get to it. It also can do wonderful things with ADC and Citrix Cloud as well. So there's a lot of extensions that it can plug into, not just the device or virtual workstation that your end users are logging into. What I really want to get into here is how Citrix is going to use UberAgent moving forward. And I think a really good, interesting thing here is that if we scroll through this blog article, they mentioned the Citrix platform license. Now, if you've been in the Citrix space for any bit of 2024, you know that there's a little bit of confusion going on about how Citrix is handling the new licensing model. Randy, you are, whether you like it or not, a Citrix licensing expert. Can you give our audience a little bit of an understanding of what the Citrix platform license is?
Sure. It's a relatively new SKU, right, that essentially encompasses the entire Citrix platform. So anyone that is entitled to it, right, actually they're granted access to all the solutions within the platform itself. Thus the name Citrix Platform License. One thing to note, it was geared towards their top enterprise customers. So I think that becomes a little bit of a challenge, if you will, for users that are wanting to use UberAgent that maybe don't necessarily qualify for the platform license. There's a process you can go through to, if you can show value and show that you're utilizing the solution, that you can acquire the platform license. But it's definitely is a change, right? So versus in the past. So again, it's kind of geared towards those top enterprise customers, but definitely a change from the past sort of entitlements.
Yeah, it's effectively requiring you to reach out to your Citrix account rep or your XenTegra rep and find out, if you want to leverage UberAgent, or maybe there's some other product that you can leverage in its stead until a new licensing model or revised licensing models get issued out. And on that note, I think it's worth discussing, what can UberAgent do in regards to what Citrix can already do, right? So pre-acquisition of UberAgent. Ray, you're a Citrix expert. Can you tell us a little bit about what you've gotten out of the box with the improvements to monitoring in Citrix Cloud? Maybe touch a little bit on what the analytics components offer, and then we can talk about how UberAgent is going to supplement that moving forward.
Yeah, definitely, Brian. So the analytics platform from Citrix has just been a continued evolution on really the end user monitoring aspect of the platform, right? Being able to go in and take a deeper look at the performance of the end user session, right? What's going on in the session? What does the performance look like? What's the interactions with the applications in the user session, right? There has been a security side to that as well, right? Not as deep, right? They continue to make progress on the security side, right? Really understanding what the end user is doing, right? What the sessions are coming from, what they're doing, for example, and really then doing ratings on that, putting ratings on top of those events as they find them, right? And so really it's going to become interesting. I'm excited to see how what UberAgent is going to bring to Citrix, right, and to that platform, and how is it going to enhance what Citrix already has in the platform, and also make them even more competitive in the market space against the others out there that are filling gaps where their monitoring might fall short.
Okay. I definitely see that. I'm really interested to see how they're going to handle the extra components to how UberAgent is deployed. So as we discussed earlier, you know, it runs on a back-end infrastructure, primarily Splunk for a lot of customers, right? And it's interesting that you'll be able to license the actual UberAgent product through Citrix and their platform license, but you'll still need a whole other separate of infrastructure and licensing for something like Splunk to maintain long-term analytics and run those queries. So I'm curious if Citrix is going to offer some kind of additional or new backend that they could run it on, maybe on Citrix Cloud, to really take that offload all that maintenance and requirements away from, you know, people that don't want to have that infrastructure to run anymore. Like that's one of the big selling points of Citrix Cloud is I don't want to have to run a huge Splunk backend database cluster just to run a single monitoring application, right? XenTegra, we ran UberAgent as a service for many, many years, 6 or 7 years actually. And we hosted that. And I know it takes a lot of infrastructure to run that and a lot of well-seasoned Linux guys to keep it nice and smooth. So seeing how Citrix is going to handle that, or if they're just going to push that entirely back onto the end user, I kind of think that would take a little bit of value away from Citrix Cloud as well. You know, we moved all these other platform components to the cloud, but you got to run the monitoring component on-prem. Now, Randy, for the customers that can't get platform licensing, or maybe just don't want to have to run an on-premise infrastructure component anymore, you know, what kind of third-party options are out there for our customers if they can no longer use or don't want to use that portion of UberAgent?
Yeah, that's a great question, right? So to your point, there's some customers that were using UberAgent today that maybe they weren't using Citrix, right? Well, what are they going to use? Or vice versa, right? I'm using Citrix, using UberAgent, but I don't qualify for that platform license. What are the alternatives? Because what UberAgent has indicated, and from a Citrix standpoint, right, they're going to provide support for whatever term their contract was up for from an UberAgent perspective. But following that, they do need to find an additional, you know, some sort of alternative if they're not utilizing the platform license. So that's where solutions like ControlUp comes into play, right? ControlUp is their DEX platform. It's top notch, provides a lot of the same sort of visibility, if you will, that UberAgent is providing, not just on the Citrix back-end infrastructure, but also from an endpoint perspective. They have EdgeDX, which allows you to monitor the endpoints. And that's a lot of the value, I think, that Citrix was going after from UberAgent, right? Being able to monitor the endpoints, not just the Citrix components. But for your typical customers, you know, I think ControlUp will provide a lot of that sort of value that, you know, if you were using UberAgent today, ControlUp can provide that value plus more, right? So they've got their automated actions, their triggers, being able to take actions. There's integrations with, you know, ServiceNow, for example. So there's a lot of third-party integrations, but the ability to natively also monitor VDI and DAS solutions as well. So
I'm glad you brought that up, Randy, because go ahead, Trevor. Sorry.
Oh yeah. Hey, I was just going to make a point. So I think there needs to be like a little bit of clarification when it comes to the UberAgent. And I think Citrix, I would think that Citrix, back to your point, Brian, is going to have some kind of roadmap that they're going to kind of reveal at some point for this. Because like right now, it's invite only into the platform license. So you're talking 200, there's only 200 clients that can have access to it today, pretty much. So I think so I think it's a future for the majority of people. So I think this really, so there's not a lot of change, I guess, for a lot of customers, unless you were using UberAgent and you're now looking for something else, you know, to potentially use, right? So I just wanted to bring that up. I don't know if that was completely clear, but.
Well,
Ray, you had a thought?
Yeah, thanks, Brian. I'm glad you brought that up, Randy. That's one of the gaps that I was thinking about, right? Is that what we call that last mile, being able to pull in and really measure and look at that last mile at the client all the way to the client, right? That's, that's where UberAgent's going to bring more value to Citrix's analytics platform and what they do, the direction they go and what they do, what they decide to do. But that is really, the intriguing curiosity I have right now, just going into customer mindset, right? I'm an UberAgent customer and have been for a number of years. Well, if I'm not a current Citrix customer, or I don't have that large of a footprint of Citrix, where am I going to be? What am I faced with, right, going forward? Is my maybe 5-year relationship with UberAgent going to be honored in some way going forward? Or will I have to look at will I truly have to look at alternatives such as ControlUp?
Something that as I have furthered my own DEX path, and being a very strong proponent of UberAgent, bringing it into the XenTegra portfolio and growing up with it as a DEX product, and now having to evaluate new products and deployments for us. One of the things that I found absolutely incredible with ControlUp is that last mile discussion, not just from I'm monitoring my VDA, right? But I can monitor the endpoint as well. And I think a lot of customers now, with all of the recent disruption within the EUC space, are just saying, you know what, I'm going to let all this stuff settle. I'm going to go back to my old school SSL VPN, or I might do something SASE or ZTNA. I'm going to put everything on my physical endpoint and let the users remote back into the data center, right? All you Citrix cover your ears. It's happening. We don't want it to happen, but it's happening. So now the users are using their physical endpoint of a laptop at a Starbucks, right? And they're calling into help desks, and they're saying, performance is slow in this application. And ControlUp has a solution for that, right? Like you can monitor the physical endpoint just as well as you can monitor the VDA or whatever virtual desktop experience they have in addition to that. So, and if you have to manage all of that stuff, right? So a lot of people have multiple dashboards to manage, my VDA environment, my physical endpoint environment, and my hypervisors, right? And ControlUp kind of brings all that together into one nice holistic bubble. And even if you swap providers for your virtual desktop, you can still leverage ControlUp for the physical endpoint, and it's validated with a bunch of different vendors, and they're constantly adding more as the space changes. So I think there's a lot of value in finding a third-party product that can adapt and shift as the market does, rather than getting a little bit of a lock-in to a vendor and being very specific in how you approach DEX monitoring for your end users. So moving on to that, Randy, ControlUp's great. We talked about having to manage the on-prem infrastructure. Does ControlUp kind of alleviate that as well?
Yeah, so that's something else, right? That's a little differentiator between ControlUp and UberAgent. So from a ControlUp perspective, again, monitoring the VDAs, your VDI desktops, your infrastructure components, your endpoints. You also have management capabilities, right? So from that single pane of glass, I can manage those devices. ControlUp maintains a large community of scripts that are provided to perform certain actions, right, or get additional metrics or visibility into what's happening on those devices that you're monitoring. They also now include, so that they have Edge DX, again, that's geared towards your corporate owned devices. They have Remote DX for BYOD devices. They also have Secure DX now from just from a security compliance standpoint, right, for those endpoints. Are they patched? Do I need to, with integration with solutions such as CrowdStrike, right? So now I can go in, have those things auto remediated. There's ability to see are there certain compliance from a security compliance? Are they meeting compliance regulations from the endpoint, right? Are they running AV? Are they running an outdated version of Zoom, for example, if I'm using Zoom or Teams? Giving some of that sort of data back to that engineer that's working, or that help desk associate. So from a management perspective, a lot of integrations there. Not some of the things that you would typically have to from a monitoring solution, get the data and then move to another console, right, to perform some sort of action or take management capabilities. You can do that natively within ControlUp. And also their integration with ServiceNow. So you think about help desk, if I got a help desk associate and they're working a call, now I have this two-way communication between ControlUp and ServiceNow, to where I can be in a ServiceNow ticket, have the ControlUp Enrich plugin installed. And if I'm looking at a device that I'm monitoring with ControlUp, I can just hover over that little icon that's displayed on the screen and pull up real-time information about that device, and even go back historically and see what's happening. So it's really a game changer, right? When you think about it, just from not only am I monitoring, I'm also being able to manage and take actions on those devices as well.
You know, that's a great summary of how you can holistically use one platform, even a third-party platform, to kind of get where you need to go. Something I found really interesting about what you just said, Randy, and Trevor, I want to tag you in here. You dropped a lot of words like configurations and scripts and automations and workflows. And Trevor and I are on calls every day with customers, and it's just overwhelming. Monitoring is overwhelming, Trevor. And from the customers that we see and speak to every day, I just want to know what your thoughts are. How what we do, what our mindset here is on the MSP team to really help our customers solve this monitoring problem. What do I need to monitor? Who's going to help me? Who's responsible for X, Y, and Z? Just can you touch a little bit on that?
Yeah. I think we not only, I mean, obviously XenTegra is a partner of ControlUp and other monitoring solutions, and we sell a lot of monitoring, but I think we have a little unique experience here. From an MSP perspective, we're consumers of a lot of monitoring, whether that's EUC monitoring, that's infrastructure monitoring. It's a required thing, right? In order for us to provide visibility and be able to support our customers and do all the things that monitoring will provide for you, right? Without it, it becomes a very reactive, support type engagement, right? So if we're not able to be proactive, then we're extending outages, incidents, and everything that goes with it. I don't know if that's the point you're trying to lead towards, Brian, but that's
you said a great word. What was that old show where you would say the word of the day and everyone would go all crazy? I can't remember what it was, but post a comment on the podcast on YouTube if you know. But the magic word was reactive, right? And in this environment, you can no longer be a reactive administrator, right? You absolutely 110% need to be proactive, which I think is critical. We've got a response. Pee-wee's Playhouse. Holy smokes! I hope I am not dating my age here. Thank you for letting us know. But I would think every administrator would agree that you can no longer be reactive, right? You need to brush up your CV if you're the reactive administrator. As a matter of fact, Trevor was telling me today that if you go to the ControlUp website, they have calculators on their website that can tell you how much time and money you're burning without having proactive monitoring in place. Just go to the controlup.com and hit the resources tab and plug in your numbers into the calculator right there and see the value that monitoring can bring. And it's not just the ControlUp platform, right? We really want to emphasize that you need some kind of monitoring platform. We think Citrix is going to do wonderful things with UberAgent. They really go together like peanut butter and chocolate, like our founder Andy Weiss, I would say. We don't think the product's going to go anywhere. We think they might need to get their licensing a little bit sorted out and make it more available because it is a great product. But until that happens, there are other great products that you can use, and you can even do more than just monitor with them. So it's very exciting times. I do want to touch base on one more thing. We talked a lot about different kinds of monitoring and all the actions that you can take with that. XenTegra does have a new product. Be prepared and keep an eye out. Project Watchtower is being released soon, and it's going to take care of all of these needs for you, right? So it's going to be a service that you can consume, powered by AI, that happens to ingest all of your monitoring data, whether it's EUC, DEX, infrastructure, SaaS, or any kind of cloud application, and take action on it with the power of AI. So keep an eye out for that. Thank you everyone for attending. This is Fireside MSP. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on the next one. Thank you.